Hi and welcome, it's Steve Johnson here, Chief Investment Officer at Forager Funds, and we're talking new ideas into our international fund with Portfolio Manager Harvey Migotti. Hi Harvey, how are you?
Hey Steve, I'm very good, thanks.
I wrote in our quarterly report about some stocks that have performed very, very well for us going out of the portfolio despite us being pretty optimistic about the business's prospects. Share prices run ahead of itself. We had a great period of performance back in 2017. We sold a lot of stocks and then we sat on a lot of cash for 12 months and it really hampered our returns over that period. I think you've brought a real urgency for us into, okay, these ideas are maturing, we've got to find some new ones, and that's been important over the past 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's all about idea velocity and just making sure the portfolio is fresh, especially when you had a market as volatile as last year's. You know, you've had numerous things up 5%, 5 times, 10 times. You know, many have doubled. The broader market from the lows certainly almost, had many stocks doubling. So I think in those instances, it's important to constantly be filling the pipeline with new ideas. Otherwise, things get stale quickly and, you have maybe potentially multiple years of consolidation. So I like to try to have a portfolio that's always fresh so that every new investor that comes into the fund can expect some sort of similar returns rather than just the ones that were there with you 12 months ago. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think that urgency around the portfolio has been really important this time around. It's roughly a quarter of the portfolio is actually new ideas that we've found this calendar year alone. I get asked this question all of the time around new idea generation, so I'm going to pass the baton to you.
Okay.
What is your process out there for finding new ideas? Because the velocity has been absolutely wonderful over the past 12 months in particular.
Yeah, I mean, it could be as random as me reading a magazine or speaking to my mom about something she's gone and done in the US, eating at a sushi restaurant and then it turns out to be a chain. But generally it's a few things that I'd highlight. It's, broker conferences. I try to, especially virtual, it's now much easier to attend them. So numerous ones a year. I speak to research houses, especially some of the guys that cover the smaller cap space, the undiscovered companies. I think that's been a really good source of ideas as well. SPACs and new listings, they've been plentiful over the last year, and as we've said, it can be a minefield. There's a lot of dogs out there, but a few gems hidden there as well, and we've participated in a few. Some have been really good for us so far. Apart from that, generally reading, investment newsletters, blogs, keeping your eye on the Twitter sphere every once in a while, I think helps. So I guess that's it. You never know when the next idea comes from.
Well, it's interesting because I give similar answers to people, and I think people find it quite underwhelming. They want to, this is what I do every day and I understand it, but it really is a business where just the more rocks you turn, and in some ways the more randomly you do it, the better, because you're trying to find things that other people are not looking for or not seeing. So if you just do the same things that everyone else is doing, you're going to get the same answers and you're going to be investing in the same stocks.
I believe so as well.
I think a lot of what I see in you is just a mind that is very, very open to, I just want to find the next opportunity, and anything that I hear about or anything that anyone's talking about or any suggestion that there's something going on here that people might not see is what you're looking for when you're reading all this stuff.
Well, ideally, and sometimes it's just in front of you and everyone is talking about it, but the fact is it's just such a good business and there's still some discovery to be had there. But yeah, that's generally where you'll find the multi-baggers, so to speak.
Yeah, you talked about conferences a second ago. It's tough from the Sydney time zone. I know you've been doing the midnight till 4 a.m. shift and roped me into a couple of early morning meetings. One of the recent conferences, we had a huge small cap conference a couple of weeks ago, which was quite interesting. And then last week there was one on the marijuana sector in the US in particular. I don't know, we were probably the only two value investors attending because it's a pretty hot space at the moment in terms of share prices. Why did you go to start with, and did you get anything useful out of it?
Yeah, well, the starting point for me is to find investments that have some sort of secular growth or tailwinds. The more tailwinds you have, I think the more chance you can, the more chance there is that you can make some mistakes on the valuation front or some other front, but you will still have a very successful investment that outperforms the market. So I think you want to see multiple of these things stack up, and cannabis is certainly going to be a huge sector in the US. It's being legalized across numerous states. That continues. Over the past 12 months, we've had some very positive news. There's chatter that in the future might be legalized federally. So there's no doubt it's going to be huge. unfortunately, that's kind of obvious to everyone, especially the retail guys out there in the US. And a lot of these stocks are trading in astronomical valuations, and many of them will amount to nothing. That being said, some of the companies that go to these conferences will become the dominant, or one of the dominant players, and will go up a huge amount from this point onwards, even though they're expensive today. And I think it's our job to at least have a look and try to see if we can identify which one it is, and try to find it. And we came out of the conference with some very interesting ideas. There's some really good companies out there. Many are priced, but you never know when these sectors fall out of favor. I mean, just in the last 7 trading days since the conference, a lot of these names are down 15-20%. So if this continues, you start to see some attractively priced opportunities. And the medical uses for cannabis, a lot of people have been, I'm sure, reading about them here at home, but they're plentiful, whether it's depression or treating other disorders. And that is an area that I quite like, and I think it's very important. And I think parts of Australia have legalized cannabis as well for medical usage, and that's been proven to work. So I think keeping your eye out on these things and just making sure that you're not missing something very obvious is important.
Yeah, and there's plenty of reasons why this sector goes through the same process as a whole lot of other sectors. There's a land grab, and then there'll be consolidation, and there'll
That's
be some
right.
good businesses come out of the other side of it. And my experience has been really successful investing. It's this weird combination of interest, optimism even.
Yeah.
I think most great investors are actually optimists about how the world's going to unfold, but then skepticism about whether this business that I'm looking at is going to be the one to take advantage of that.
That's right. Yeah.
I think being interested in all of these things, parking that idea a lot of the time, okay, that's interesting and it's an interesting business and I'm interested in what they're doing, but I don't want to pay today's price.
Exactly.
And more often than not, at some point in time, you get one or many of these stocks come back to prices that are very attractive.
I mean, if you did it in a .com boom, you would have been very successful. You would have picked the best companies out there, whether it's on Amazon or whatever. And as everything is crumbling, and that valuation comes to very attractive levels, quite frankly, at one point for many of these names. Google at one point was trading, I think, at 11 times PE in the 2000s. So I think if you do that and you keep them on your radar and you've identified the good ones, and all of a sudden it starts flashing, everyone hates this sector all of a sudden, but yet the fundamentals have continued to improve. Well, there you go. That's your value opportunity, so to speak.
Great. Thanks a lot, Harvey. I hope that's given you a bit of an insight into where those new ideas are coming from. We've been keeping the cards pretty close to our chests in terms of some of these new ideas. They are small cap stocks, and in some cases we're not done on the buying side yet. You will read more about them over the coming months and hopefully years though. Thanks for tuning in.